This week on Quadriga, terror in Nigeria, world to the rescue. Global condemnation has followed the release of a video that shows some of the kidnapped Nigerian schoolgirls. It's been a month since they disappeared, and in that time, pressure has piled on Nigeria's President Goodluck Jonathan to act. His government has accepted help from abroad to save the girls. The U.S. has sent advisors and reconnaissance planes like this one to aid the search. But along with the anguish over the girls' fate, there are also some voices criticizing the help from abroad. They say it's a dangerous extension of the war on terror. Is foreign assistance the right answer to Islamist terror in Nigeria? Your host this week, Melinda Crane.
Hello and welcome to Quadriga. Why has the Nigerian government done so little to rescue the girls? Is it unable or unwilling to do more? And does worldwide public outrage really make a difference? That's what we want to talk about today on the program with three experts who follow events in Africa very closely. And I'm pleased to introduce Peter Dörrie. He reports on Africa with a focus on resource politics and security issues for publications such as Think Africa Press and Weltsichten. Welcome to you. And Emeka Akude comes from Nigeria. He has served as an advisor at Germany's Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and he's currently working with the German Development Institute, researching conflict and conflict management in Africa. And finally, it's a pleasure to welcome my colleague, Zainab Ahmed Mohamed. She's a journalist from Nigeria who works with Deutsche Welle's Africa desk. She's a coordinator for the Learning by Ear program, which spotlights social issues affecting the lives of young people in Africa. Zainab, as I understand, you have just come back from Nigeria a week ago. You know, we've seen pictures of the distressed parents. We hear about worldwide outrage. What are others in Nigeria saying? What's the feeling there in your region? It is in the north. You live not more than about 100 kilometers away from the village the girls are from. Tell us, what was the sentiment that you encountered?
The entire northeastern region in Nigeria is a kind of chaotic now, especially these three states that have been placed under emergency rule, talking about Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe State. And since before the happening of the abduction of these girls, people have been living in fear of seeing military. It's not easy. You see the military within the cities, moving among people, stopping cars on the way within cities, not in the bush, but within cities. Military are known to be in at the barracks. They stay in the barracks. Normally, we have the policemen and we have the SSS. They are normally within the people. We are used to them. And all of a sudden, now the military is all over. And people get scared, even seeing those uniformed people with their big guns, moving within people, within the civilians. Is not normal. In the markets, you see them. On the street, you see them. Then came this sudden abduction of these girls, and the situation became more and more fearful. You can see it on the faces of people. Nigerians are living in a kind of situation which I can say laughing and then continue living, It's because the situation is so pitiful. When you think that it is not your daughter, it is not my daughter, but you think as a parent, as somebody, community member, when you think that these girls are ambitious girls, they have their goals, they are just in their teenage, and then they were there to seek for education, to seek for their future. And then all of a sudden, overnight, they were taken away in lorries. How would you feel? Just hearing that these ambitious girls are just gone. And they are gone, they don't know where they are. They don't know what situation they are in. That is the fear. That is what happens to you next. What happens to the neighbors? What happens to the villages? What happens to people? Not just those girls that are left, but you that is living in that same area. What comes next? That is the fear within Nigerians now, especially in those areas.
Akude, what about anger? Fear, clearly. What about anger? Are people frustrated? How could it be that after so many weeks, we still don't know where these girls are?
People are angry. People are frustrated. But this anger and frustration, did not just start with the kidnapping of these girls. Zainab just said something about what Fela, Fela Nicola Bokuti, this popular musician that once died, called suffering and smiling. I think it was a record he released sometime in the 70s. So where he was saying that Nigerians are suffering, and in the midst of suffering, they are smiling. So just to say that this issue of fear and anger is not new. It's always been there because of, irresponsible governance, which goes back to corruption. So all those things are now happening because of, the long history of irresponsible governance that we have had until now. And one hopes that this might be, a catalyst, for the ruling classes in Nigeria to really think about what they're doing to the society. She talked also about fear. You see, people are afraid, not just afraid of the terrorists, but also afraid of the security agents, afraid of the army, afraid of the police, because they have a tradition of misuse and abuse of powers. I mean, a lot of people are languishing in Nigerian prisons for doing nothing. I have once been arrested and detained overnight for doing nothing, just for waiting on the street. Just to tell the story short, I visited a friend. He was in Lagos, in Abuja. The friend was not there. A rich man in a very big house. So the wife left me in the sitting room and went upstairs. After a while, it was boring for me. So I told her that I want to go outside, and wait outside. In Nigeria, for the rich people, it's normal that they have security men. We call them megads, outside the house. And most of these security men have a table where they sell sweets and cigarettes and things like that. So I went outside the gate to stay with this security man on the table where he was selling something. This was happening in 1992 in Ikeja, Lagos. Suddenly, there was a police vehicle, arresting young men in the streets. I was just looking at it and, discussing with the security man what is happening here. And suddenly a policeman came to me and asked me what I was doing here. I told him I was waiting for my friend, this is his house and things like that. He asked for my identity card. I was already doing my PhD at the University of Benin at the time. I gave him my identity card. He said, you have a lot of fake identity cards. That he has to take me to the police station to confirm that. I ended up spending a night and was lucky to be released the next day because I saw a policeman that is a neighbor to me, whom I just called through the window and told him what was happening. He went to his boss, and after about 30 minutes to 1 hour, I was released. So a lot of people get, killed in police cells and things like that. So, I mean, this is nothing new.
So fear and anger. Goodluck Jonathan, the president of Nigeria, elected just a couple of years ago, vowed to change all that. But you're both telling me there's still a tremendous amount of government irresponsibility. I ask you, Peter Dörrie, could the government have found out more about where the girls are? Should it have undertaken some form of rescue by now? And are we talking about incompetence? Are we talking about a lack of political will and perhaps even something darker?
It's probably a combination of the above. The first thing to mention is that there are several reports that say that the village where the girls' schools is situated and where the girls were taken, that was attacked. And before the assailants came to the school to take the girls away, there was about a 4-hour time frame where the army could have come in and save the girls, basically, and they didn't. And I think there was just an Amnesty International report that came out that basically said there was the opportunity to save these girls before they were abducted, but the army just didn't do anything.
And how do you explain that? It is often rumored in Nigeria that the army may even have contacts to Boko Haram, that it may even be providing them with weapons. Do you think this is a case of outright conspiracy?
In some parts, yes. So I think it's pretty well established that at least in some cases there have been dealings between the army and Boko Haram. But for that to understand, it's also important that Boko Haram is not one movement. It used to be. But then, as the conflict between the government and Boko Haram grew longer and longer, and I mean this is going on for years now, the group has splintered and is very diverse. So there are allegations, and I think that some of them are well-founded, that politicians and parts of the military establishment have cooperated at times with parts of the group we know as Boko Haram for political reasons or just for plain corruption.
Zainab Mohamed, would you agree with those allegations? Rumor has it that the military officers in Nigeria see some personal profit in letting the conflict continue because they have the biggest military budget they have ever had, and a lot of it apparently flows into their own pockets. Do you think that's right?
Well, I would not say outrightly that is right, because the experts and maybe some of the opposition party officials have accused the military of using, this huge budget they have, because the security budget is so huge that it's unbelievable, this amount of money, and nobody is accounted for. They don't account for the money. When you budget for security for a country, in Nigeria, for example, there's no accountability for that. So some experts and some analysts are saying that the military, sometimes they instigate these things that are happening so that this budget will keep on growing and the top officers, are getting this money. But the one fact still remains that the lower military, those that are on ground, those that are within the society, those that are kept on the road, checking points and what have you, these are people that when you see them, you will know that these people are in absolute hunger. They are in absolute poverty. It's either they are not given what they are supposed to be given, you are taken away from your duty post and to a special duty post, you're supposed to be given a special allowance. So they end up doing other things that they are not supposed to do as a security agent. So we have seen recently in Maiduguri, Borno State, where the military attacked their commander there just within the week, simply because they claim that they've not been paid their allowances. So this kind of thing, if the military, or I can say these lower officers can attack their senior officers, then you will see that there's a lot of things that are not really clear there. There are so many things happening in there.
Sounds like those underpaid soldiers might be potential recruits for a group like Boko Haram.
Of course, it is possible that they are, especially if you juxtapose that with the information we have, that since Boko Haram has really gone into an alliance with Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, that they have been having a real financial sponsorship from Saudi Arabia and from London, Great Britain. So if you put those things together, then you see that if you have a situation of unpaid military people and a situation of well-financed terror group, then it's possible that there could be a change of camps. But I want to say something again on the issue of collusion.
Of complicity between the military officers, the high level.
Yeah, the point is that, if you understand the political economy of governance in Nigeria, you have to understand that it's about money. So it is very, very plausible that this increased military budgets end up in private pockets of top military generals, and because of that, the foot soldiers are very angry, and that is why most times they don't attack Boko Haram when they are sent to attack Boko Haram, because they will tell you, we cannot do this on empty hands. We'll be risking our lives. That is one. Again, on the complicity, I think it was 2 years ago when a joint task force was sent to attack Boko Haram. They ended up being killed, the soldiers, because it was clear that Boko Haram had the information that they were to be attacked at a certain time, and they got prepared, laid ambush for the soldiers. The soldiers walked into the ambush without knowing, and Boko Haram killed all of them, which means that I mean, there is an information going on between, coming from Nigerian military to Boko Haram. Now, if you listen to the last video messages of this new leader of the Boko Haram last week, he was saying that he wants to exchange these girls with the Boko Haram members that are in prison, and he said exactly where those prisons are located, in which cities these prisons are located. I mean, I research on Nigeria. I don't know where these things are. Some Nigerian soldiers don't even know where in which particular prisons they are. So he's got sources. Specific information from the military. So, I mean, these things are very clear.
Now, Peter Dörrie, the government has finally said this week it is willing to talk to Boko Haram about a possible exchange of those Boko Haram prisoners being held by the government for a release of the girls. Could it have opened those negotiations much, much sooner? Why just this week?
It certainly should have, because I don't think that there's really a military solution to that hostage crisis. It's bound to end in bloodshed if they try to rescue these girls with military means. It should have opened up to this possibility earlier, but I think there's also a past history with negotiations with Boko Haram there. So the government tried several times at several points to negotiate a truce with Boko Haram, and for one reason or another, all these times they failed. Sometimes because Boko Haram wasn't a joint movement that could be negotiated with, or at other times because the government itself wasn't very united about the idea of negotiating with such a group. And I think this is the same thing that what happened now. The president was very fast in saying, no, we won't negotiate with terrorists, because he wanted to appear strong, and he wanted to show that he has control, although he obviously hasn't. And so now there's a change of heart when you see that there's they realize that they don't have the situation under control, so they tried the next best option and say, well, maybe we can negotiate.
Zainab Mohamed, let's focus a bit. I see you want to make a comment, but perhaps also focus a bit on Boko Haram itself. We've just heard John tell us it is a terrorist movement. It is associated with Al-Qaeda. So should the government actually then engage in negotiations? But is it a terrorist movement for you?
For me, it started like a sect which had a particular aim or goal to achieve. That was in 2009 when they came as agitating for Sharia in the northern Nigeria. They wanted Sharia law to be implemented.
Islamic law, Sharia law.
Islamic Sharia laws. That was what they first said, that was what. And we knew then it was just one group with a particular aim. And at that time, there was a lot of, they started these attacks, not exactly as it is now, but somehow they came out, and then they were known to the government who their leader was, who was caught by the military and given to the police, and there he was killed in the police custody. That we know, Mohammed Yusuf. Mm-hmm. And since then, everything went down. Before again, it came up with we hear Boko Haram with different faces. Nobody really know whether this is one group, but it is like, it's emancipated, with in different angles, with different motives, different attacks. They started with bombing the churches, which ordinarily, Nigeria is not divided along religious or ethnical line. We are all united. Nigeria is a one nation. We don't look, if you look at the Northeast... I
have to say, I just want to briefly interrupt here. I see John nodding his head now. As I know, you are Muslim, you are Christian.
Exactly.
Right?
And we unite together regardless of your religion or your tribe, because Nigeria has languages. We have a lot of languages. We have the major two religions and other traditional, but we live together. We live in unity. And if you look at Northeast, where these things are happening, majority of the families are mixed. You hardly find a family which has pure Muslims as members or pure Christian as members. Mm-hmm. So if you're fighting a Christian, let's say I'm a Muslim and all the other family members are, am I going to kill my brothers? Am I going to kill my cousins or my nephews? I can't do that. So that is when they started bombing the churches, now they started saying, okay, they want the implementation of Sharia. But the Sharia they said they wanted to implement, the then Mohammed Yusuf and his members were on Muslims only. It affects only the Muslims in the north, because no Christian would do something against the law, and he will maybe, when he's caught with corruption or any other thing, his hand will be amputated or something like that. But it only affects the Muslims there. But with the killing of Mohammed Yusuf, everybody thought everything was dead, and it became quiet until when everything erupted again in different ways. And it will surprise you to know that most of these places that have been attacked in Borno and Yobe, these are areas that are Muslim-dominated areas. When you check the local government and the neighboring local government, they are all Muslim-dominated places. So who is Boko Haram? That is the question up till now.
And the question many people are asking themselves is Boko Haram Abu Bakr Shekau? We've all seen pictures now. He appears to be a crazed fanatic. But John Akude, if he were only that, surely Boko Haram would not be as powerful as it is. So what role does he play in all of this? And is this a sect? Is it an emerging civil war army? What exactly, how can we understand what Boko Haram is?
Thank you very much. I don't think this might lead to any civil war. But the issue is that Boko Haram, are you talking about Boko Haram? Are you talking of MASOB, that is the Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereign State of Biafra? Are you talking of OPC in the West? Are you talking of the MEND, the terrorist groups in the Niger Delta? You see, all these groups are protest groups, and they are protesting against one thing: bad, irresponsible, and negligent governance in Nigeria, period. I wouldn't want to, dwell on that, because I think that's very clear. The issue of, the increased violence of Boko Haram has to do with grievances caused by the extrajudicial killing of the first leader of Boko Haram, who died in police custody without even being arraigned before a normal court of justice. So this kind of aggrieved a lot of people. And not only that, after this issue of members of Boko Haram laying ambush and killing soldiers, soldiers and police people went back and killed all the people that have been arrested as members of Boko Haram that were in police custody. Just brought them out and killed them. So what I'm saying is, if you act like this, you are kind of increasing the grievances in the society against the system. And look at the name Boko Haram. It simply says, we reject Western education, we reject Western civilization, we reject Western system. Why do they do that? Because Nigerian system is a Western system. The education, the governance, the economy, everything is Western. And this is a system that dehumanizes human beings, that makes them very, very hopeless. So it's not like there is no basis for what they are saying. We have to bear this in mind. Coming to the personality, just to say something.
Very short, please.
One or two sentences about the personality. So the killing of Yusuf,
prior leader.
Yeah, the prior leader.
Haram.
Before that, everybody knew how insanely radical this Shekai has been. Yusuf has had a terrible time trying to hold Shekai in check because he knew what he was going to do. And suddenly Yusuf was killed, and Shekai disappeared, went on the ground. The story was that he was dead. And suddenly he recovered and put up this group together and started. So it is the illegal removal of a moderate gave the chance to a crazy radical to do what he's doing now.
Okay, so we have a really poisonous mixture here from the description that we've just heard. We have a lot of people who are angry and who are frustrated and fearful, and clearly who can, in this vacuum of governance, fall prey to a lot of different splinter movements, including some very extreme ones. Peter Dörrie, connect all of that for us, please, to the fact that Nigeria is now Africa's most powerful economy, according to the latest statistics, a very resource-rich country. What's going on?
Yeah, I think what John has already alluded to. I mean, the Nigerian economy is very powerful. The country is rich. You can say that there's a lot of oil, there are a lot of mineral resources which haven't even been tapped yet. I mean, it's mostly about oil at the moment. And there's also quite a strong economy apart from the oil sector by now. So you have a film economy and you have a telecommunication sector and everything. So there is money. But this money stays at the top. It floats to the top. There are politicians, there are big men getting rich. But very, very little of it trickles down to the broader population. And I think that Northeast is among the worst off parts in this country.
There where Boko Haram, of course, has
exactly.
been raging. So would you go so far as to say that Nigeria is on its way to fragile state status?
I mean, you could make, I wanted to make this point about the civil war question. You could make the argument that there is already a civil war. I mean, with around 2,000 people dead since the beginning of this year, with more than 5,000 dead over the last few years, there's an argument to be made that it is already a civil war in some ways. And I don't think that you can talk about the whole of Nigeria, but I think parts of the country are certainly fragile. Or fragile parts of the state. And I mean, Boko Haram at one point, before the latest army offensive, there were huge parts of the Northeast where the government virtually had no influence. So there was no army presence there. There was no government presence. And you had Boko Haram actually controlling parts of the countryside. So yeah, I would say that there are some elements of a fragile state there, yeah.
So, Zainab Mohamed, is this a situation in which it makes sense to send military support, even of the indirect kind that the U.S. is now providing? It has sent some reconnaissance aircraft. The head of Africa has now gone to Nigeria to talk to the government. Is Western military support the right tool to use? Our title asks the question, World to the Rescue. Is that the kind of means by which we can rescue these girls?
I don't think so. And when you look at what the experts are saying regarding this, foreign assistance to Nigeria, which some thought that Nigeria should have sought for this assistance long before now, even before everything escalated to this position. While some are saying Nigeria doesn't really need this foreign assistance because you're inviting people from outside. We should look at the geographical location of northeastern Nigeria, especially Borno, where this thing happened, which is why they are inviting the foreign military now to come and assist, or foreign expert. So some are saying that if you invite people from outside, of course they have the technical know-how of locating, maybe using the modern technology to locate where these people are in these very forests and beside they say they are located. They have the technical know-how better than Nigeria. That is okay if you're inviting that help, but not military on ground. You don't invite military on ground to Nigeria because Nigerians have confidence in the military because the military in Nigeria had reputation of helping in other peacekeeping missions in other countries outside Nigeria, especially in West Africa. So I think among the military people that are posted in these areas, there are people from those geographical zones and they know the locations. They know those places better than anybody that will come from even other part of the country, not to talk of somebody coming from outside. While some of the oppositions are saying that when you bring military now, you're inviting more trouble, as we have seen in other countries. So we need the technical assistance of assisting Nigeria, knowing the situation of our technical know-how, which is very low when you compare to the Western world, United States, France, which led to the meeting now that is going to take place at the weekend, which the France is hosting. So I think I will somehow agree with them that military intervention is not the best, but technical know-how will help Nigeria.
Do you agree, John? Would you say what is the best kind of outside help that could be provided right now?
Yeah, of course, I will agree with Zainab that what we need is technical help and not military help in that sense. I have said that
technical help and military help are often that's
no,
a very thin line.
I mean technical in the area of surveillance. Technical in the sense that since oil has been discovered in a lot of countries in the Guinea coast, in the West African coast, and again coupled with Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, you have a lot of American spies, American secret agents for several years now, patrolling this area, collecting information. So what I have once reading on the Facebook page of a blogger, who happens to be a cousin of mine, a Mefo, is that, what Nigeria, and that was about last year, even 2 years ago, what Nigeria needed to do was to seek help from the US and possibly from France, because they have their secret agents here, and these secret agents have information that we don't have.
Let's say the government actually does get some information through these unmanned surveillance aircraft or from spies, from whomever. Peter Dörrie told us a few minutes ago, listen, if this turns into a military operation, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, I don't think, this will not automatically turn into a military operation. I mean, if you get information, then you know how to use information to really get at the people you're looking at. So it's not really going to become a military operation, depending on how you manage that.
Peter Dörrie,
I would
agree?
excuse me to say one or two things, about this concept of, fragile state, because, that's the area where I wrote my doctorate work, and I've been lecturing at the University of Cologne, on this issue for several years now. Nigeria, has been displaying, the classical, features of a very fragile state. It's not a collapsed state, but it's definitely very, very fragile. So we have to look at it as that. And since this government took over, things have even become worse. We've never really had good leadership in Nigeria, and this bad leadership is getting worse.
So, Peter Dörrie, if we do have surveillance aircraft providing some details, those details are in some way handed over to the government, will it inevitably turn into a military operation?
Not inevitably, but I think there's a real danger that, for example, the US now has manned surveillance aircraft in the area, and they try to find the location of these girls. And I'm pretty sure that they're capable of doing so. But likely there will be multiple locations. So if the leader of Boko Haram is in his right mind, he will have split up the girls into multiple locations. And this will make a hostage rescue by military means incredibly difficult. And I think the danger is that the US or another state shares some intel with the Nigerian government or parts of the Nigerian government, and wanting to appear strong and wanting to bring a quick solution to this crisis that makes them appear in a very bad light, they take the decision of trying to rescue these girls. And maybe they do it in cooperation with the US Special Forces, maybe they try to do it on their own, but I don't think that it will end well in that case.
So
I think if I were on the government of a cooperating state, I would be very, very careful what information to share with the Nigerian government in this situation.
I'd like to take a look now at another type of help or support the world has been trying to provide, namely the global Twitter campaign.
The hashtag #BringBackOurGirls has become a huge trend on social media. It sparked rallies around the world with several prominent people supporting the campaign. U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama posted a photograph of herself with the hashtag on her Twitter account. She also took over her husband's weekly presidential address to speak about her outrage over the schoolgirl's abduction. The hashtag has contributed to global awareness about the kidnapping, but it's also been slammed as mere online activism that has no effect on the real world. Will the hashtag campaign help find the girls, or is it destined to fade away and be forgotten?
What do you think, Zainab? Does it help? Does it make a difference?
Well, It might help, because I'm sure if the leader of Boko Haram, Shekau, can upload a 15 minutes, video and send it to YouTube, which everybody can see, I think he sees what is happening. And I was watching some of the Nigerian media yesterday, the campaigners who have been sitting there wearing red, holding the placard, bring back our girls, campaigning, calling on the government to do more, calling on the society to help, calling on the security to help in bringing back the girls safe and sound. They were there last night. I cried. I had tears in my eyes what some of them were saying, the campaigners, what they were talking about these girls. And I'm definitely sure wherever he is, the leader of Boko Haram and his members who are holding these girls, they must see what is happening. They must see how the entire world is saying they should bring back those girls. Please, they should bring them.
But mightn't Shekau actually draw exactly the opposite conclusion? If he is as fanatical as he seems to be, mightn't he simply say, John Akude, wow, this has been a tremendous success for me. I have the whole world's attention and the West hates what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that is, you're really correct, and that is my fear. Because it's not just reduced to Shekau and Boko Haram. International terrorism, as we know it, studies have shown that they feed on the media reports. They want to intimidate societies, with fear, and they do this through media reports. So once you have a lot of media, it's playing into their hands. And that is my fear, that all these campaigns will make him happy and harden him the more. But again, I will say that if this campaign is what is needed to get Nigerian government to be concerned about this case, then it is positive on that side. Don't forget that it took about 3 weeks before the Nigerian government reacted to this issue. And within these 3 weeks that these girls were being looked for. The daughter of Nigerian president got married, and he was, at the ceremony dancing. I was looking at it, dancing at the marriage of your daughter, where about 250 or 300 families are losing their own daughters. That is one. And then to come to the international campaign of, these big politicians, Cameron, Obama, it is good, but if, you see, the cause of these problems, as I say, goes back to corruption, which deviates the attention of people in governance from government. And most of the stolen monies are left in Western banks in Britain, in the US, in Switzerland, and wherever. So if Cameron and Obama do not see a connection between the money stolen by Nigerian governments present and past that are in the banks in their countries and these kidnapped girls, if they don't see a connection, it means they don't understand the world they claim to be leading. If they see a connection and do nothing and just run around with placards, it is clear hypocrisy.
So if there's leverage from a campaign like this, it's not going to be on Boko Haram and Shekau itself, if anything, may be counterproductive, but perhaps on the government, according to what we just heard. Peter Dörrie, when I look at the campaign, I'm reminded of what we call in international law the right to protect, an evolving international principle, the idea that there are some circumstances where countries outside need to go in because a government simply isn't able to protect its own people, a principle that Vladimir Putin has lately been abusing with his own rhetoric, but a principle basically devised after Rwanda, when the world sat by and watched another horror in Africa. Is there a right to protect issue here? And is there something the international community can do besides Twitter?
No, I don't think that you have a responsibility to protect case in this in this instance, because you have a state that in theory would be capable of dealing with the situation, because it has the means to do so. It has a strong military, it has the funds, so they could deal with it if they could get their act together. And it's also not the case that that it was the state who abducted these 200 girls. So there's a bit of a different case to something like Rwanda or Central African Republic. So I don't want to mix these things up. As I said, I don't think that a military intervention from the outside or from the Nigerian military in this case would do any good. And so this is out of the question for me. And also there's a question of practicability. So what do you want to do? Do you want a UN mission to northern Nigeria when the UN barely gets the Congo under control? So you would need 20, 25, 30,000 UN soldiers if you want to match the scale of the commitment that the Nigerian government has in place. And it's just not a question of being remotely practical to intervene on this scale, to say, okay, the Nigerian government can't handle it, we do it from the outside. And also, I agree with John, the root causes of this issue are in Nigeria, and no amount of outside intervention will solve this problem. So you have the Nigerian government, the Nigerian society has to get a grip on this problem. No outside help will change anything fundamentally there.
Very briefly, if you would, Zainab Mohamed, from everything that I've heard, this is a very complex and a very long-term problem, and we've got a short-term crisis. What needs to happen now, briefly?
Actually, what is happening, the major thing that is happening now is the inconsistency even among the top government officials in Nigeria. The Goodluck Jonathan just said they are not going to accept the request of the Boko Haram releasing their members in exchange for the girls abducted. And the president of the Senate, who is visiting in China, also concurred what Goodluck Jonathan said yesterday when the Commonwealth Minister in charge of Africa, Mark Simon, was visiting Nigeria. And the information minister said they are going to discuss. They are going into dialogue with Boko Haram. So there's a lot of inconsistency. But what is important here is that there's common unity among Nigerians to fight the common enemy.
Thank you very much for being here with us today. Thanks to all of you out there for tuning in.